What's going on, everybody? We should be live here on YouTube, and thank you to everybody who is joining us. Let me make sure this is muted here. Everyone who is joining us here on Zoom, I'm going to give this just about 60 seconds. Some folks will probably trickle in a little bit, and we will get started here. Really excited for tonight's episode. Thank you for everybody. Thank you to everybody for having your camera on. This is a first. I love the fact that we can have, like, I never understood if I was going to be on on this, like, people would have their camera off. So thank you. I appreciate it. It lets me know who's here, and we can have a conversation. All right. We're going to get started here. Thank you also again to everybody. We did not have a show last Wednesday. I had my staff in town. My team was in town, and they're all over the country, so we don't get the chance to get together very much. And it was right before our conference, and so we didn't have a chance to do a show. So we took 1 week off, but we're back at it here. If you're new to the show, we do this every single Wednesday. And the way that I explain it to people is I didn't want to do a podcast because I felt like everybody had a podcast. I wanted to do something where it was a live audience and we can have a different type of conversation. And so we wanted to do this every single Wednesday. The way that it works, the way the format works is I'm going to start off for about 5 to 7 minutes or so, give or take a little bit, and I'm gonna give my perspective on something. I'm gonna present a topic, a point of view. I'm gonna tell you what I think, and then we open it up for an AMA, and Ask Me Anything line of questioning. And that's why the benefit is to be here on Zoom. In fact, I'm going to, if you're watching this on YouTube and you do not have the link, I'm going to quickly put that in the comments on the YouTube live stream here. I want you to make sure you jump in. Join us live. All right. So the way that we do this is it's an Ask Me Anything at the end. So it could be anything related to the topic. Obviously, there was a reason why you guys, some of you might be here because you're very interested in that very topic. So we can talk about how it pertains to you in your agency, things that you're doing. But if you want to ask me questions on anything, it doesn't just have to be on tonight's topic. It could be on last week's topic or any topic that you feel like, hey, this is something I'm dealing with right now. I'd like to maybe get some more insight, or just your thoughts or opinions, or the thoughts or opinions of anybody else on the show. That is kind of what it's for. So typically these calls last anywhere between 30. I'd like to get these closer to 45 minutes, but really depends on the engagement of the audience. So we're going to take it from there. If you have questions that you've come to the show already with, go ahead and put those down. If you're on Zoom, put that down in the chat, and I will get to it as soon as I'm done kind of ranting and raving just a little bit. But tonight's episode is going to be on social media content, social media strategies for insurance agents, and put together a little bit of a slideshow, and we'll jump into that for just a moment. But I want us first to remove the concept that this has to be insurance specific. I think the more that you can make things insurance specific, it's great, but there are certain things, certain categories that aren't necessarily insurance specific. It's not a strategy that only works in insurance. It's a strategy, what we're going to talk about tonight, that works in any B2B vertical. It works in any B2C vertical. So it's really kind of more broad in that way. And I know it works because it works in every single category. I'm going to talk about how I've been affected by this. You'll start to think about ways that you've seen this with other companies or other brands or other whatever the case might be that's completely out of insurance, and you'll say, you know what, that rings true, because that's kind of how I think about it too, whether I'm buying anything. But we're going to get into that. So what I first want to start off with is this idea that everybody wants to be part of the party. This is how I think about things. When I see things online on social media, I want to be a part of the good stuff. I want to be a part of the party. So when I see companies and brands creating content and their whole team is bought into something, or there's this wave of success or this upward trend, it affects how I want to think about doing business with that company. I want to be involved with stuff. So I'll give you 2 examples as it pertains to me and what I do. There's 2 software companies that when I see their stuff and their content, I go, man, I can't wait to the time where I'm their ideal client. They're kind of companies that are above, as far as scale. And those 2 companies are Metadata and gong. I look at the social media strategies that they do. They have everybody on their team posting. They have everybody in their team bought in, and they give a narrative or a perspective that I go, yes, that resonates with me. I want to do business with that company because the things that they're saying, their whole team is bought into this mission, this purpose, and that's something that I want to be a part of. I resonate with that. And that's how I want you guys to start thinking about your social media content. I'm going to share my screen here, and we are going to get going here. So the first thing I want you guys to think about when it comes to your social media strategy is I want you to remember that simplicity and consistency is key. You have to keep it simple, but more than that, you have to keep it consistent. What happens is you start asking yourself this question, and I'm glad Drew Kinney is on here because I'm going to reference him, and this is kind of where I got the idea. You start asking yourself this question: well, should I do videos? Should I do podcasts? Should I make a YouTube channel? Should I do TikTok, Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook ads, email? All the above. You start asking yourself, what should I be doing? And what happens is you kind of get paralyzed a little bit. And maybe I'll bring Drew on if he's okay with it. I'll bring him on to kind of go deeper into kind of where he's at. But where I get the feeling and things that I've seen him comment is he goes, I just don't know where to go. I hear everybody talking about this stuff, and I just don't know what is north and south anymore. I get my head spun around, and I just don't know what to do. Remember, simplicity and consistency is key. The tactics that you deploy aren't necessarily going to be the tactics that somebody else deploys. What Drew does in Vermont might be something completely different than what I would do in Arizona. And that could not necessarily be because of geography. It could be because of clientele. It could be because of agency. It could be because of focus or staff, or all the above, right? Who am I talking to and why am I talking? But if you just remember that you just want to keep it simple. So if you just want to start off on one or two platforms and just go deep on there until you can kind of get the other platforms, then that's probably how you should think about it. Keeping it really simple and keeping it really consistent. Here's how I think about it. When I first learned how to talk, when I first learned how to talk, or my kids first learned how to start talking, they didn't start speaking. They still to this day don't speak in the most articulate, complete sentences. They talk like children. But the more that they talk, the more that they go through it, the more they're going to find their own voice, the more that they're going to be able to craft the right sentence. And so when people think, well, I just don't know what to say, I don't know what to do, if you just start simple, then the more that you do it and the more consistent that you're doing it, the more likely it's going to be that you're going to start to find your own voice. You're going to find your own cadence. You're going to find your own perspective, and you're going to run in that direction. There's not necessarily a right way or a wrong way when it comes to a lot of this. It's really a matter of preference. But the thing that is going to stifle you is if you don't have a consistent cadence for doing that. So make sure that whatever you're doing, that you're keeping things really, really, really simple. I'm gonna go to slide 3 here. So, no, wrong keyboard, idiot. So another thing that I see a lot of agents do is they just get stuck in the tactics. Again, what should I say on my YouTube video? What should I say on my Facebook post? Do I need to make sure that the light hits, the person just the right way when we're taking a photo? It's tactics. And when you get stuck in the tactics game is when you're going to constantly be on a hamster wheel. That's not really what you want to be. So let's remove the concept that it has to be insurance specific. And let's understand that this is a viable B2B strategy for any type of business. I want to be a part of the party, and I want to be a part of companies that are doing something really, really well. Another thing I see a lot of agents really kind of get stuck on is this idea of targeting. How do I target my ideal customer? So they look to platforms, and the platforms provide a crutch for targeting. The best targeting that you can do is it's not found on platforms, but it's in the consistent message that you create for your targeted buyer. So this goes back to understanding, again, who's my customer? I ask insurance agents this quite a bit. Who is it that you're trying to reach? And they'll say, well, I want to reach, the homeowner with 2 cars. I go, yes, you and everybody else. So how are you going to stand out in a consistent way to reach that person? The best targeting that you can do is in a consistent message that resonates with that targeted buyer. And a misconception about social media content is that agents think that it should just create leads. When they talk about social media, the thing that attracts them is I want to generate a lot of leads. And so I'm going to start posting on social media. And that is the wrong way to think. Social media leads is a byproduct of what you're doing on a consistent basis. But the correct way to be thinking about this is that I don't want to just generate leads. Leads from people come from people who are impulsive, people who don't have any high or real intent to buy something. They're people who are looking to solve urgent problems and they don't think about what's important. Insurance agents are tired of dealing with customers who just want to shop on price and only view them as a commodity service. Well, when all you're doing is fishing for leads, that's exactly what you're going to get. But when you use your social media content strategy as a way to create demand, and we're going to talk about specifically how to do that, then that's how you create value for your product or service. That's how you create value for who you are and the time that you're spending and your expertise and the value that you provide as an independent agent. You don't want things to be urgent. You want your audience to think that you are important and what you do is important. The leads that you get from just generating social media leads, those are people that churn out the most. They're the biggest price shoppers. They don't value your product or service. They just see you as a commodity. And the truth is that your consistent emphasis on content or a social media strategy, it should be used to create more demand for who you are. On-demand education to help customers solve their own problems. So, and this is kind of big. Let's bring it down just a little bit. When I say on-demand content that helps customers solve the problems, this really goes back to understanding who the customer is, who it is that you want to do business with, and who fits your agency model the best, and then creating content that allows them to want to do business with you in an easier way. So if you focus on commercial, let's say you focus on work comp, you're creating content around workers' compensation or around that industry that you're trying to serve in a way that helps them understand what it is they're doing, or better yet, use you as the mechanism or the vehicle to get it what it is that they want. So whether it is to reduce their mod or whether it is to have a risk management program in place, you need to create content around that helps them understand in a very easy way, because that's what customers want. That's what we want. We just want to be able to understand it in a very simple way and then delegate the expertise off to somebody else. Make sure that we're not doing something wrong, but give them self-serve educational content that they can get on demand, content that's valuable, that helps them make a buying decision, in an informed decision in your favor when they want to solve their problems. Content that elevates the brand and is a megaphone for your agency's mission, purpose, and culture. That's how content should be treated. So I think there are 3 buckets that you should be thinking about when you're making content. And these 3 buckets really range. So when you're thinking about what it is I need to be doing on social media, you need to be looking at this in terms of 3 buckets. Does it fit in this bucket, or this bucket? And I think the 3 buckets for agents to be looking at is they need to be looking at, let me get down here. They need to be looking at 50% of the content needs to be your point of view or thought leadership. You need to have 50% of the content that you make, 1 out of every 2 pieces or so, be something that is your perspective. Why you think it's wrong that companies have to deal with this on their insurance, or the things that are going to affect them in a negative way or a positive. What's your philosophical point of view when it comes to your target audience? And when you have a point of view, when you have an opinion, then people can connect with it. Number 1, it also shows, number 2, that you're an expert in that area. And that's what it needs to be. You need to be giving out your point of view so that you can attract who it is that you want to attract. I think that 25% of your content needs to be culture driven. And by culture driven, I think that is really about team wins, team hires, things that are personable. You want to post about the fun stuff that makes you a real human. And then I think the other 25% needs to be stories, case studies, proof of results, showing that you were able to deliver on a promise. If you can make your content fit inside of these 3 buckets or have some variation of these buckets, I think if you just do that content over and over and over again, that's how you're going to win. Most of your content needs to showcase your expertise and who you are and why you do what you do. So when you're making content and you're telling stories or you are giving education to help people make buying decisions, you want to come at it from that angle. You want to talk about the struggle that they face and your point of view and how you are the vehicle to kind of get them to the results that they want. The more and more. Here's my slides are a little bit out of order. I apologize, but more and more people are looking for reasons to do business with you or against you. So you got to be the beacon that they want. One thing that I hear agents talk about is they don't want to dive into politics. They don't want to dive into controversial issues. So when it comes to their point of view, they want to be a little bit more vanilla. And I think that there was a time and place for that. I still think there's a time and place for that. However, it's my opinion that people are looking for reasons to do business with you. And they're also looking for reasons to disqualify you. Think about your own self. And it does, and whether it's about politics or anything, really, anything, politics is the low-hanging fruit, but it could be anything that's affinity based. You want to use that as a means to attract who it is that you're going to attract, because that's what customers are looking for today. Everything is so polarized on every single issue. You might as well use that as a means to benefit you. If you just play it vanilla and you don't have a strong point of view about your industry, the industries that you serve, the clients that you're trying to work with, if you don't have a strong point of view one way or the other, then you don't stand out in any way, shape, or form. And the category leaders in that category are going to continue to have the momentum that they have, and you're never going to be able to punch above your weight class. You've got to be able to give people a beacon to attract them. You have to give them a reason to want to do business with you. And they'll say, well, I'm repelling half the audience. Listen, if you are in a state with 1 million people, I think you'd be okay if you got just 1% of 500,000. So don't look at it from that scarcity mindset, but look at it at a way that you're going to attract the right type of customer that's going to want to do business with you. And then you want to hit them in the middle. This is a bullseye client. Make content where you're aiming for the middle. As you look at the bullseye there, what's going to happen with your content is you're going to make content for the perfect customer. You're going to make content for the customer that you want to do business with, and you're going to miss the bullseye a little bit, or it's going to attract people who aren't yet in the bullseye, and you're going to say, yeah, these guys are close enough. We'll let them do business with us. Or you'll kind of get a little bit further out and you'll say, well, it's not ideal, but we'll take them. And then you'll even get people where you're like, I don't know how in the world they saw this, or they wanted to, this attracted them. And then you make a judgment call from there. But again, if I could reemphasize anything, it's that simplicity and consistency is going to be key to your social media strategy. The other aspect is when you're thinking about the buckets and you're thinking about making content for brand or for culture or case studies or thought leadership, you want to think about creating content based on affinities. So affinities are really the demographics, the things that are going to stick out in the news feeds, the things that are going to resonate with your audience. It could be city and state, it could be job industry, it could be political persuasion, it could be interest or hobbies. Again, it gives you a way to connect. Affinity allows you to tell stories. Affinities allow you to build connections with people. So that's how you want to think about that. You want to have better stories and you want to have a better narrative, and affinities connecting to the things that they're interested in or the things that they value is going to be how you're able to stand out in that newsfeed or with your social media content. We'll quickly go over platform strengths. I think there's a lot of platforms. I think they have a lot of strengths. People go, where should I post? What should I do? It really depends on where your audience is at. If you got fish in the pond, go put your fishing pole there. If they're not really there, then don't spend as much time on them. I prefer LinkedIn. I love LinkedIn. LinkedIn is great for organic reach. It's the only platform where somebody can like my stuff and then it's seen by like the 6 degrees of Kevin Bacon. And it just has much further reach. I love LinkedIn. It's great for B2B clients. If you're in commercial or you're trying to write B2B insurance, then LinkedIn is definitely a place you need to be playing. It allows you to target your audience with content. It allows you to do all the things that all the platforms do, whether it's hashtags or searching. I can search for people who work for certain companies. I can look up companies. I can connect with people in a non-spammy way. I love LinkedIn. If you're in the B2B space, then LinkedIn is it's in my opinion, it's a must. Because of its current dynamics. Facebook is great for relationship building. At our event, one of our speakers had a fantastic hack that you can really only do on Facebook, and it was great. Facebook is great for relationship building. So when people comment on your stuff, you can respond to each comment with a video message that's personalized, that stands out in the news feed. It allows you to kind of break through the noise. I love Facebook for the relationship aspect. I'm not on TikTok, really. TikTok is, I'm trying to get my mind around it, but TikTok is great for, it's great for reach. We posted a video on TikTok and, it got thousands of views. I was like, what in the world? Just around the content, because it's still trying to push out content. And YouTube is great for education. So regardless of what platform you want to do, don't get so lost in that. Really think about where your customer's at, and then create the content bucket list that you're going to put on that platform that's going to allow you to kind of reach your audience over a consistent period of time. And once you go deep on one, then start to look for a second one. I don't think you should start off with all 5 or 6 or 7 content platforms at once. You should look for 1 or 2, anchor down on those, and then as you are consistent on them, start to kind of dip your toes into the other platforms. That's my opinion on social media content. So that's a very high level overview, but I want to make sure you guys, we answer questions that you guys might have as it pertains to things in a more personalized sense. So just on the Zoom channel, we're going to open this up for AMA. Anybody have any questions yet? You can put them in the chat, or you can raise your hand and I'll unmute you and we'll go from there. Who's got, yes, let's go to David here. I'm gonna ask you to unmute. David, first tell me before we start, so that I have some context, tell me where you're located, and tell me the agency kind of high level, personal lines, commercial lines. This is what we focus on.
Sure. Our shop is the Semler Insurance Agency. We're in Southern California, specifically Agora Hills. We're a boutique firm, so we actually do everything: commercial lines, personal lines, life and health, but we're not to date set up to be mass marketers. That said, we are going to start a campaign on Instagram. And what we're doing, I think, is different, but I'm interested to know if anybody has had experience doing it this way. Instead of simply reinforcing the agency brand, this campaign is going to be producer specific. So to the points that you were making earlier about knowing your audience and being able to target exactly who you want to bring in, it actually becomes a lot easier if you're focused on a producer. And I was just curious, because it's new for us, if anybody's had experience doing it that way, and whether it was good or bad.
So I want to make sure can I get a little bit more context from you? Was there a reason why you chose Instagram as the platform?
Yes, the producer already has a connection to a frequent poster on Instagram. It's actually a news-based channel, if you will. And so we were able to work our way as an advertiser into that channel much more easily than we would have if we were just approaching it cold and not having a relationship with them.
So is it kind of a spin on like influencer marketing? You guys are going to leverage the influence of this existing Instagram channel to kind of push out the content?
Yes.
Okay, that's very cool. And what type of content are you guys thinking about that the producer's going to put out?
It's going to be a series of very short videos, basically illustrating what happens to the positive when this particular producer gets involved in solving claims problems, in seeing around corners for different lines of businesses, different customers, and we have a little tagline at the end that kind of brings it all together. But it's very personality specific, very driven by this particular individual.
So the things that I really like about this is that you are making it personality driven. That's the kind of the cornerstone of social media, is it's personality driven. I like that it's coming from a person and not necessarily a brand. Now, there's a fine line here, and I have opinions on it. I tend to lean on one side, but you'll also have to reason with the idea that your producer's building a brand, how that's going to benefit the agency overall over the long period of time. What happens if that producer leaves? You have to reconcile those things, right? And so you have to think about that kind of beyond the first step.
Right.
I like the idea that it doesn't sound like it's very salesy, but it sounds like it's just story driven. It's narratives. Hey, we were able to do, like, this was able to happen. We were able to achieve this result in a claim situation, or risk placement situation. Is it personal lines, commercial lines, all the above?
It's going to be a mix of personal and commercial lines.
Yeah. So So I think that that's good. Now, another thing you have to kind of guard against in the structure of the content is if it's just about me, uh, that can kind of be off-putting over time. You want to make sure that the focus is really on the results and not so much on the personality. You want to use the personality of the producer, but you want to make sure that the spotlight, the emphasis is so much more on the result and the customer. The more you can do that, and you can make the audience envision themselves and what the customer's going through, the better. If it's just all about, hey, we're the superheroes here, it kind of goes back to the story brand model of, who's the guide, who's the hero. You want to make sure that it's much more. The emphasis is placed much more on the end result and the customer and showing that and making the if the customer's talking about how great the producer is, that's fine. But if it's just the producer going around like he's a little Gary V, that could be problematic. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, no, fair enough.
That could be off-putting. But I love the fact that you guys have thought about this. I love the fact that you're leveraging somebody who's already got an existing reach and an audience that they can tap into. I think that's really good. The key is to make sure you can kind of do that consistently. Maybe create a series. Maybe take content that you're putting on the Instagram channel, and you can maybe distribute it in other areas. That might be another way to kind of gain a little bit more reach on that.
Oh, thank you. That's a very good idea.
Yeah.
Kind of cross-pollinating.
Yeah. But it goes back to the point, like people want to start cross-pollinating, and they haven't even pollinated the first flower.
Yeah.
Like be consistent on Instagram first and do that. And so, but don't be afraid to kind of start dipping your toe in the other and redistributing into the other platforms.
Great. Thank you.
Cool. Who else has got a question here?
Nick, I got something for you.
What's up, Drew?
I
thought about you when I was putting this together, so I'm glad you're here.
I had to sign up as soon as I saw it, because it's like case in point. What people probably don't know is there was a little bit of a Twitter interaction on one of Nick's classics examples of threads of things to not do and do with insurance marketing, and it kind of hit a nail on the head for me. Because we do a lot of the things that we should not do. And these are things that I think historically in the past, we have heard from people that we should be doing. And so the classic example that had me kind of rolling on the floor a little bit was where, we're big tips and tricks guys. So that's how we build a lot of content around. And, the joke in there was about the turkey fryer. Well, guess what? We had a turkey fryer post and video and everything to go around it on tips on how to safely fry your turkey on Thanksgiving.
So for the context of people watching is I said, you want to make content that's valuable to people, how to winterize your home or how to do the annual daylight savings email and the annual, this is how you fry a turkey email. That's not the content that they're looking for. Right.
So that left me in a position of being like, okay, so I've heard from people that we really shouldn't talk a whole heck of a lot about insurance because that's boring. And then the tips and tricks, no one cares. So then it's like, I don't know what I'm supposed to do.
I don't know. And I think there's some clarity around this. I don't know that you can't talk about insurance. I think that that's fine. But I think so. And I think that's where it falls into the thought leadership bucket. So let's take an example of an industry that you like to serve. Like give me an example of it, whether it's personal lines, commercial lines. Give me a segment of the market that you guys try to go after.
Sure, I'll give you a unique one since we're Vermont and that's the time of the year. It's maple sugaring producers.
Okay, so is there a lot of risk management and insurance competition around that?
I mean, there's only a couple of players, but there is because people have these giant sugar houses with, these sap boilers that are, 50, 60K, some even more expensive than that. So it's a pretty significant operation this way.
How much of the market do you like? What's your market share of that industry? Like, what would you say? Is there a lot there that you guys are not tapping into?
We write a lot, but there's definitely more. We're kind of in the northern part of the state, and I think there's more we could probably reach into and get into.
So when I think about creating content, let's go after this industry. Number one, I would try to see what kind of case studies I can create around the business that you've already done. You're in a good spot because you've already done business with some of them. So you could probably tell stories or create narratives and case studies around the people that you've already done business with. Is it a safe assumption that all the manufacturers, are all the manufacturers
Sure.
or distributors, do they all pretty much know each other when like by company or by brand or who works where? Great.
Yeah, small town Vermont, right?
Perfect. So you create case studies with John Doe at XYZ Maple Sugar Company, and you're able to talk about the results that you were able to achieve with them. And it could be anything on the risk management. It could be anything on. It could be the price. It could be any of that stuff. It could be something you were able to do. Create a case study and a narrative on that, and then send that. Number one, post that on social. And the only people you need to see are people in your audience. So who cares if it doesn't matter?
Right.
But then also take that piece of content and send it out to the other people that you want to do business with. Another thing that I would probably do is I would make content like a case study, whether it's a video or a blog or whatever, something with visuals. I'd post it on social, and then I would pay the platform, whatever platform I put that on, whether it's LinkedIn, Facebook, or whatever, and I would just try to target people in that area who are more than likely going to be working at those companies. So it's a content that you can use organically by sending it to them directly, or by paying the platform to kind of push it out to people directly. It doesn't have to have a lot of spend on it. You're just pushing it to a small area. But I think that's a thing that you could do with content. And so that's talking about insurance. And then it's also creating content on social where it's thought leadership things. So you probably have a pretty good idea as to the problems in that industry, the ways that insurance as a vehicle can solve some of the problems, whether it's on risk management or their comp or any of the things that go along with more of a middle market account. You can talk about the problems and the struggles of that industry and how insurance is the mechanism to kind of solve some of those problems. And you can create content around that. If it's just one and done content, that's not very good. But the reason why you got to do it consistently is because you have to start to be known as the guy in Vermont that is the maple sugar or maple syrup expert. And so the more you talk about that on a regular basis with your unique point of view, not just, hey, we got all these options, we can save you money, but you're saying like, here's the problem. This is why it's a problem. This is what's holding, and this problem is causing you to have XYZ other problems. It's magnifying it. You're reframing it, and then you're talking about how you can solve it, or how insurance is a vehicle to solve some of it. Then that's going to be how you kind of do that, and you do it kind of in some sort of regular cadence.
Nice. Cool.
So I think you do talk about insurance. Now, is everything about insurance? No, but because there's other buckets you got to fill. There's the culture bucket, right? We're a thriving business in Vermont. We have a staff of XYZ. This is who they are. This is their personalities. This is the dumb thing we did over on Friday when we took everybody over to Topgolf. I'm just naming places that are close to me, but
we don't have that in Vermont, but I get it. You
know what I mean? Like take all your team. Do they? I'm gonna show my ignorance right now. Can you go to those factories and do like I think of like going like to like a vineyard or to like a coffee farm where you can like taste the coffee. Can you do that?
Yeah, they do have open houses, usually right in the middle of sugaring season. So it's a good thing to do.
Take all your team to an open house. Have them with the little hairnets on and have them like sampling the place, right? Call out where you went. Right. And maybe do nice. like a pub crawl with all of them, like if you can.
That might be a little too much sugar, but sure.
But you know what I mean, right? But that's it's a culture piece. It's fun.
No, I like it. I think that was kind of a big piece of it too that I took away from this is definitely the 3 buckets that you mentioned. I think that's good. It's nice to figure out like what your spread should kind of be, or like have an idea for it. So
yeah, and I see people go really heavy on the other side. Like I'll see them talk very little about thought leadership, and they'll talk mostly about culture. Or they're talking mostly about case studies. I think what I think is a good strategy is to, and maybe that ebbs and flows over time as well. But I think to get started, your positioning to be known in the market, you've got to deliver your point of view. You've got to be almost, dare I say it, a thought leader for that industry. And so that's important, right? Because the maple syrup companies are going to want to do business with a company that they feel understands their problems and what it is that they want a professional.
Yeah.
And so that's why I think it starts to ebb and flow over time. It's not just one constant, you do this forever, all eternity.
Right. I probably picked a pretty unique one. So for those people that aren't in Vermont, just think contractor instead of maple syrup producer.
But that's the point, right? It doesn't have to be. It could be about any business vertical.
Right. Exactly.
So it can work for a lot of that. Any other questions? Thoughts, concerns? Where have you guys seen that?
What about
Where have you guys struggled? Yeah.
Distribution? I know you kind of talked about platform. Should we also be trying to hit these up through like an email mailer, or what's their thoughts there?
Yeah. Did you guys all get my email today?
Yeah, I did. Yeah.
Right. Yeah. So email is a great way. Now, I do the show every week. I've only emailed you guys once because I don't want to overdo that. But I think email is another way. So when you make a case study as an example, we'll go back to your example of the maple syrup companies. You should, if you don't, have contact information of the people that make the decisions at those companies. If you don't have them, go to Zoom Info. There's another one called Apollo where you can find contact information for the people who work there. LinkedIn's another one. Create that content piece and then send it out to them via email.
Nice. Yeah, because that was one of the challenges. We're not at the moment very consistent, but we've in the past have had consistent stretches, and it was we put a lot of time and effort into these, and it's like you throw it up on YouTube, you try to spread it around via all the social channels, and then you go back there a week later, and it's like
exhausting.
Eight views, and you're like, what am I getting here?
Yeah, it's exhausting. So I'll give you an idea, right? As it pertains, like let's take this show as an example. I only live stream it on one platform. I'm not streaming this on Facebook or LinkedIn. I'm only streaming this here, right? Because I want to my own personal thought. I want to concentrate all the energy and effort here. I'll redistribute certain parts of this on other platforms going forward, but everything is going to happen here. I don't want to break up the attention. Posting on all the platforms can get really exhausting really quickly, and it could be kind of a burnout. So that's why I'm a big fan, and that's why I say it a lot. Find one or two anchor platforms and start there. Like just get your legs underneath you, and determine what it is. For some, it might be LinkedIn and TikTok. For some people, it might be YouTube and Instagram. For others, figure out where the fish are at and put your pole in that water to begin with, and then you can start to branch off into other platforms when and where it makes sense. Once you feel like you got a really good handle on the one, but start with the lowest hanging fruit where your customers are congregating at the most. And it may not be on a Facebook wall. It might be in a Facebook group. It might be in a Slack channel. It might be in an email thread. It might be on a LinkedIn group, right? It's up to you to determine just a little bit of research on where your customers are hanging out. Here's the good news. It's the internet. They hang out there. People say, well, I don't know that the person at the maple syrup company is on the internet. They're on the internet somewhere. They're on the internet. They're there. So go to that source first. Other questions before we kind of jump into what people are saying on YouTube? Stephen Ross wants to know, where would you start if you have stopped posting for a year? Well, it's the old adage, the best time to plant an oak tree was 1,000 years ago. The next best time to do it is today. So you just pick it up and keep going. Consistency matters, but if you haven't been consistent, then start being consistent and start posting today. Start talking about stuff today. A lot of people have this fear of, I don't want to be salesy. That's a real apprehension with a lot of folks. They don't want to use their platform to be salesy because they're like, it's social media. Nobody wants to be sold to on social media. If you do things the wrong way, it's going to feel like you're selling to people. One of my favorite, I'm going to find it here because I want to share it on the screen. It's one of my favorite quotes from one of the OG admin from like the 50s. My light just went out. From one of the OG admin from the 50s. He said this. Let me find the quote. This is something I posted in our group for attendees for the conference. It's, nobody reads advertising. People read what interests them. And sometimes it's an ad. And I love that quote. People don't want to feel like they're selling to people. They don't want to come off as salesy. If you talk about what interests other people, if you make emotional connections with your content, then it doesn't feel like an ad. People Nobody wants to read an ad, but they want to read what interests them. So make your content interesting to people, and that's going to be how you find success with that. So if you haven't posted on social media in a long time, then start posting on social media. And if you feel like you're being too salesy, number one, it could be something that you're feeling on your own. But number two, figure out a way to make it not about you. Figure out a way to make it about other people, the interests that they have. This is why I think affinity marketing is a big thing. You want to connect to what people have an affinity for. It could be anything as small as coffee and wine, or something as big as politics or religion. It's anywhere in between there. That's your judgment call. Like I said, people are looking for reasons to do business with you. More than anything, people are looking for reasons to do business with you, just like they're looking for reasons not to do business with you. So give them reasons to do business with you. And don't be afraid to show your personality. Don't be afraid to show your whatever it is that you believe in. And again, big or small. I wouldn't worry too much about that. Think Insurance says, insurance boring? How dare you, sir? Insurance, that's right. Insurance is like the most exciting thing in the world. I feel insurance content is fine, and the best content to start with are questions that you get a lot. It's a content strategy. What are the questions that you get on a lot? The strategy isn't about like driving a lot of engagement. It's about being found in search. So when people talk about like, they ask the questions, you answer them. That's great for search content. I'm searching for things. I'm looking for things, or it's a library that I can later redistribute for customer support and all that stuff, or sales. And that's a content strategy that you can have, you should have. Think about, the top 20 questions that you get all the time. Think about the top 20 questions that you are getting when it comes to the maple syrup industry, or the customers have. Better yet, the way that I like to reframe this is, think about all the things your customers don't know about you, that if they knew about you, they'd want to do business with you, or they'd be more likely to want to do business with you. That's the content you should make. What are the things that they don't know, that if they did know them, they'd be more apt to want to have a sales conversation with me? It's a great content strategy. It goes beyond just, hey, is rental car coverage covered on my policy? That's not what makes them want to do business with you. But the other things that, if you go deeper on that, that's going to be the things that are going to make them go, that's what I want to know. I need that. I needed that information. Right on. Any other questions from anybody watching live?
I would just add on that that's the content strategy that we use, and it's definitely one you have to be a little patient with. And like literally, for some posts and videos that we have made, over a year ago, are just now starting to get a little traction. So it's one of those things where, like I said before, you put it out at first, and you're disappointed in the views. But then I had, this past month, a couple posts that were all of a sudden on YouTube getting 50 plus views, just randomly,
And it's a momentum thing. The more you have in your library, the better. So, and again, I'm going to use Better Agency as an example, because I think this works in every vertical. When we first started making content on YouTube, we'd get, the video might get 20 views a week, right? And I was pushing it pretty hard. But as I kept making content and it just kept sandwiching, then it creates this binge effect where people go through the content more and more, and you start to have more of a repertoire or an arsenal of content that people can go through. It shows that you show up, you have expertise, and it makes you, it's more trustworthy, to be honest with you. So if you just make one video a year ago, that's great. But now you need to start making videos for what they're going to find in the next. You want to shorten that window, but you also want to have content for what they're searching for 6 months from now, 12 months from now. But you want to shorten that window so that the more content you have out there, the more likely they are to find you and then start to go through the other content as well. So I wouldn't get caught up too much in the views. Views to me is a vanity metric. I know, you can have a video that has 8 views. So let's go back to your industry. You have 8 views. What if 4 of them were people from the maple syrup industry?
Right, or they're potential buyers or something like that, right?
Right. Now, let's say you got 1 million views, but none of them are from the maple syrup industry. What would you rather have? You'd probably take the 8. 4. Yeah, you'd probably take the 8 views.
Right.
And so don't get caught up and hung up on the vanity metrics. Best thing you can do is not even look at those metrics for a while. Just put out the content and start to learn by doing. Learn by implementing, and you'll get better at it. you'll get natural feedback, or you'll start to see kind of trends, and you'll just improve your craft, whether it's video or written or visual or whatever the case might be, distribution. Just the more consistent you do it, the better. It's true of everything. The more you do it, the better you kind of get at it. And you'll start to tweak and iterate kind of based on your own intuition. And then you can go back and look at the metrics and see, okay, where's the drop-off rate? Where are people engaging? What's really hitting with people? What's not hitting with people? But if you just go into it thinking, okay, I'm gonna prep this content and then I'm gonna hit refresh like every 30 seconds to see if people are watching the video, that's an extreme version of it. But you know what I mean? Then you get hung up in that, and it's if you're not viral, then you feel like it's not effective, or if you feel like it's just not getting a lot of traction. Look, how many people are searching for maple syrup insurance? Right, they're not. That's why you need to be a little bit more offensive with your content. You need to make the content, and then you got to push it out, because they're not searching for it. So you got to push it out to them. You got to make them feel the agitation of what it is that you're talking about. So, right on. Well, guys, thank you so much. This has been a great time. If you guys are watching this video, whether it's live or on replay, and there's a topic that you are curious about, you want to dive deep into, you want to have a conversation about, then help me, because I don't have all the answers. So I'd love to have topics, things that you guys are looking to talk about. I like to start bringing on people who are also experts in that field or that craft, and adding to that conversation. So thank you guys so much for watching.